Hey,
Hi.
hi. Are you in a nurse uniform today? Because you know we are talking about sex.
What? Was that your attempt at a sexy voice? My gosh. Ew.
These animals, they're never gonna trust me again.
Sex. All right. Okay, so today we're
All
gonna
right.
talk about sex, right? So
But we are talking about sex today.
we
Let's talk
are.
about baby. Let's talk about you. No, not you and me. Gross.
That really feels gross there. Ayo, why like that?
When do you first hear about sex? Not have sex, I don't need to know her, but just like we're talking about sex and in terms of like the education
Sex
and like when we
education
first
lah. Okay, we're talking about sex ed, not just sex. Sex education. That's our theme. Okay, respectable
okay,
and all.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
when was your first sort of sex education?
I do remember we have sex ed classes in school. Okay, give some context. I was in primary school in the 1990s and then secondary school late 90s and early 2000s lah. So like sex ed then was like almost nothing one lah. It's still like the girls were put to a corner and they are probably talking about like menses and stuff. Then the guys
Yeah.
talking about like, oh, don't have sex basically. They're just telling you don't have sex.
Really?
Then you will get STD or
Really?
that's like generally my impression of it. Like sex is bad. Is it the same for you? Yours longer, what? Because you're older, right? What was your sex ed like?
I'm just a few years, perhaps slightly older, but no, I mean my parents actually, my mom, okay, I won't say parents. My mom actually was the first one to give us any form of sex education. It was very early. I remember before even going to primary school. I think it was also to warn us to be sure that we were not touched inappropriately. So she kind of explained how babies were made, and she also told us like if anyone touches you inappropriately, must tell her. So that was my first time. And then when we went to primary school, she actually gave us the part 2, like a bit more detail.
But
And
that's
then,
from okay, continue. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's from my mom. But then when I went to school, I remember like even though we've had that talk, but my mom gave in very simple terms. And my mom is a nurse, right? So
Right.
maybe my mom is actually a nurse.
A real nurse. So
All the
this is her
nurse
uniform,
jokes.
right? You're wearing. Yeah.
I'm so stuck right now. Yeah, but my mom is actually a nurse, and I think for her it's a very medical thing. So she explained it in a very clinical way. But yeah, I remember when I was in primary 1 and I took the school bus, there was this older girl in the bus, and she held up her finger. Okay, so we don't get censored. It was her middle finger, and then she's like, "What's this?" Yeah, okay. I'm a good girl. Yeah, she said, "What is this? This is a cigarette." And then what do you do with a cigarette? And we're like, "Huh?" She's like, "You stub it in."
Wow,
I didn't get it.
Oh,
Yeah.
How old were you then?
Primary 1.
Primary 1. Wow, that's young.
Yeah, I didn't.
That's very young.
She was probably primary 3. I didn't get it. And then after that, I remember like quite distinctly this same girl. There will be another incident on the same school bus, and she went around asking like, "Are you a virgin?" And I remember I thought about it very hard because I had no idea. The only
Whether you
virgin
are a
I
virgin
knew,
or not. You don't know
I didn't know
what
what
is
it
a virgin
meant.
basically. Yeah, okay.
I think my reaction was no, because
You are not
I
Virgin
was
Mary
like,
lah.
correct. And then she and her friends like just laughed, and I didn't get it. But it stuck with me because later on when I finally understood what a virgin meant, and I understood the context of that stub it in joke, right? Then I was like, "Walao, this girl, damn jialat."
And all this is at primary 1.
Primary 1, yeah.
Wow, your school's very mature leh. For that time.
Yeah, I mean, and I was from a girls' school, so the formal sex education that we had, we didn't have boys, right? So there wasn't ever like a separation between boys and girls, right? Because there were no boys. But I just remember they gave us the menstruation talk when we were primary 3 or primary 4, right? But it was more like how to deal with when you first start menstruating. I don't remember them ever really talking about like sex. Honestly, like I feel like my mom gave me the most sex education, because after that, at primary 5 or 6, and then maybe in secondary school, she would give like more updated versions of the sex talk. Yeah, and like actually I think she's quite progressive lah, because when we got older, it's best not to do it before you're married, but if you're really gonna have to do it, then please be safe about it. Don't get an STD, use a condom, right? So I remember,
she told you that?
Yeah.
Like your mom told you that?
More than to me lah. I think to my brothers, she's always said like, if you're gonna have sex, make sure it's safe.
Right.
Like, I mean, I think she's realistic lah. She knows that,
Yeah, very realistic. Sounds like you got a very healthy like sex education.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought it was evil because she also always emphasized that it's a very important part of marriage, right? And so it's not dirty or it's not wrong. Just, I guess she tried to, I think she explained it actually pretty well to a young kid lah.
Sounds like okay, but like for me, like I don't remember having like any sort of like proper sex education lah. Even my parents, they are like not hiding the fact that they are intimate, but there is no like long talks or explanation, and I never felt comfortable enough to really ask them like questions that are like embarrassing. So there was a lot of like just trial and error, and also like
and error,
and also trying to like listen to overhearing what other people are saying, you know. So it's very silly lah. It's very silly. Okay, so fast forward to now, right? I would think that primary school to now is about 20 years for me. There should be somewhat of a huge leap in our sex education, right?
I hope so, right?
Yeah, you hope so, right? But from what I'm researching, right? Okay, I haven't seen the syllabus myself, but from what I'm seeing from MOE's website, they have a brief. And then also from like a 2019 article from Today, it sounds like it's still about the same, abstinence. And then if you have casual sex, you will get STD. Then that's about the sex ed that we are getting now, lah.
Wow.
There's no mention of a condom or anything, right? Especially in Catholic school, I'm sure cannot, right? You're not supposed to. Yeah,
no mention at all.
I don't remember having any talk about like condoms and stuff. Like it's still the same. So like I do feel that our sex education in Singapore is a bit obsolete lah. Yeah. And I was thinking, you sent me a link just now from Millennials of Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And okay, usually I find it a bit hard to watch their stuff lah. Okay, obviously it's not meant for me.
For research, you have to watch it for
research, and honestly, it's good. It's a good show. I'm not putting them down in any way because there is value in the way that they are presenting, because it's like truths lah. It's like a lot of things that people are very curious about, and they are very, very open about it, and I applaud them for that.
Yeah.
And like, but it shocked me at their mindset now, you know, like the youngsters now. And if you compare the kind of openness that the mindset, like they're talking about things about like, 3 months so must have sex already, from a female, you know, like that, this kind of talk compared to the kind of like abstain from sex. You know, like it feels like our sex ed is very, very out of touch, like, you know, with social media, with internet, everything. We are so exposed to sex nowadays. Like there's nudity on Netflix all the time. There's sex on Netflix all the time. On social media, I'm sure, on Snapchat, everywhere. It's so hard to run away. Isn't it time to update our sex ed?
I definitely think it's time lah. And I mean, I read a few articles. So I sent you that video because I'm always blown away by... Terrence totally judges me, by the way, when he hears me watch it. But I actually watch it out of curiosity a lot of the time, you know, because I'm very blown away by the level of authenticity and openness that they have.
How do you keep your sex life alive?
So what we like to do, right, when we go to clubs, right, we will check out people.
To make yourself horny?
No, like, I mean, no, send invitation.
How the f*** you get that, dude? I don't know.
we had like a treat. I'm sorry, Mom. We had a treat.
Like when you're having sex with her, then what are you doing?
A sis.
You and I, we already talk quite openly about a lot of things, but like they're really uninhibited, you know, talking about everything, including sex. And I feel like it's a bit of a reflection of just the younger people today. You know, as what you're saying, their whole attitude towards sex is very, very different. Right? I think like it's no longer like, okay, like if you have one night stands or you sleep around, like you must be a slut or whatever. Now it's very normal. And it's very like a personal choice. So I read a few articles, and I think you also read, you know, in preparation to talk about this today, about like some of the actual young people, what they have to say about sex education in school. I remember one girl said there was a bunch of guys talking about condoms, but it seemed so comical that her friends all just thought it was funny. Students are also saying that sex education should go beyond just preaching abstinence. One guy who's 21 years old actually said that when they keep talking about abstinence and how you should not have sex, the more we want to do it, which I don't think is wrong. I think, for a lot of students, that might be honestly to be like, why cannot do? I try law, right? So I'm not sure that's the way to go if that's what you're trying to achieve. Right. And then there's the whole discussions about LGBT. So when I was in school, there were family members and friends I had who came out to me as gay. Like, this is secondary school. When I had friends come out and tell me like guy friends tell me that actually they like men, or like I said, family members. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, and I slowly understood it, but it was never explained to me. So this is also quoting students, current students, said that the sexuality education ignores the existence of LGBT. Like apparently it was brought up, but then LGBT relationships were never talked about, and they only use the word homosexuality, bisexuality, and heterosexuality. The teacher implied that homosexuality and bisexuality are phases that one will eventually get over. I'm like, huh?
It feels very not progressive in Singapore, but the fact is that we are very not progressive when it comes to this, right? I'm pretty sure like still a lot of people still think it's unnatural even, or it's, like phases and stuff like that. Yeah, so like some of these topics that you're talking about, I also feel is a bit lacking. Things like pornography, how to deal with pornography addiction. And okay, look, if you gave me like unlimited pornography when I was like 14 or 15, walao, I will be able to do nothing lah. I will be doing nothing every day. I'll be coming to school with like just like my right hand will be like 10 times the size of my left hand.
Okay, Andy, I got it.
So like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there is a lot to be addressed and we need to speak more truthfully, like we saw LGBT, also like how about sexual advances online and stuff like that, like sending photos, like nude photos. There's so many things to touch on now, and people are getting informed. You want the reason for sex ed is like what your mom did to you. Like she gave you from a trusted source, she gave you all the information and she gave you truthfully and you trust her and you made your own decision based on those. But now it still feels like it's very fear-based, one. Two, it's very like it's trying to brainwash you. And this is what we like to do. We like to tell you a narrative instead of giving you the facts and letting you give your opinion. And this is, especially when it comes to sex, right? Our younger generation are so much more ahead. I think maybe the people that are writing the syllabus.
I think they are trying. Like I'm reading like some of the topics that they apparently teach in schools, primary schools. They teach a bit of cyber safety, personal safety, sexual exploitation. And secondary school, they do try to talk about STDs and stuff like that. But I think you're right. Like it definitely has to be more. The approach could be a bit more like what my mom did, I guess, more informative, and then you let you make your own decision. There is this website that I find quite interesting. It's called shy.sg. Basically, it gives you the lowdown on sex, and they even say that their purpose is to help people understand their bodies well enough to make informed lifestyle decisions. And it's run by these for people.
I think they also found the issue with our sex ed lah. So basically I went to browse, very nicely done, like basically just telling you factually what it is, and then like breaking myth, and then giving you right information lah. Because you really don't want to be. I think I was lucky, I could have been a dad when I was like 16, 17, 18,
Yeah.
And then like I was just lucky. There's nothing else other than luck. You don't want the trial and error for your kids lah. So you really just need to talk to them. As parents, right? Okay, so the other part of sex ed is also parents. This is something I'm asking myself every day also. Because I'm asking a question, when do I begin sex education for my kids, right? And my wife actually believes like teaching them as soon as they can speak. Like, so 2, 3 years old, 4 years old, we talk about like different parts of our body when we shower and everything, like how to respect each other. Because like Aiden and Avery, sometimes they shower together, then they will be, they'll look at each other and then they'll, hey, what's this? They want to touch her. So there is framing from being very taboo, like, but very like calmly say, this is that, you have to respect this happens. So I feel like, I actually as a parent, I'm very anxious about like, should I talk to them about sex? But I feel like, okay, maybe when, like for me, my tactic right now might not be the best because I'm not an expert, but my tactic right now is that I just let them know that nothing is taboo in the family. So you can ask anything. And if you have questions, I will answer them truthfully lah. But I will not like forwardly tell them like, oh, sex is penetration when they are 4 and 6. But when they have that question, and I don't know when, because some kids, they mature earlier, some kids, they, like your friend, your person that was like doing the sex thing at primary 1, that's very, very early, And if that happens to Aiden, then I would tell him factually and hopefully that is good enough. So if any parents out there have any other tactics or advice, right, just please do share. I also want to hear like anybody have any horror stories or not, like, oh, your primary 3 son, like what did this, or like the friend did this, did that, like horror stories. I want to hear like what are the horror stories and how young, because even like for millennials of Singapore, right, you're doing something, right? What about the 13, 14-year-old? That's when I started exploring about, sex and blowjobs and stuff like that. That's when I started asking 13 masturbation. That's when I asked, so what are the 13, 14-year-olds doing now? Even like maybe the 10, 11, since like information is crazy open now.
It's quite disturbing, right? Like, I mean, a friend and our producer actually shared also that like some aftercare teacher was talking to a primary 4 girl, and then she asked, how do you know he's your boyfriend? The primary 4 girl said, cause I love him and he says he wants to have sex with me every day. Huh? Primary 4?
10 years old, right? Yeah.
It's quite disturbing, eh?
But I was asking those questions when I was 13. So like if you consider like the information availability now, like you minus away another 3 years, that's about primary 4.
To parents who still feel uncomfortable having to deal with this, I would say better that it comes from you than comes from some warped sort. I mean, that your kids have a funny view of it, right? So at least to decide like how you want to share the information with your kids. Scary, man. It's good that we start talking about this, you know, because I do feel like it's something that's really important. I mean, I agree with the way your wife is taking, which is to not make it a taboo. I think my mom told us from a young age, or me, because as the only girl, she did say like, if you ever get pregnant, please tell me.
Yeah.
Like she's made it very clear, like, don't just get an abortion, feel like you cannot talk about it. Like, tell me. And she actually promised to not scold me, and she said we'll work through it together. I mean, it helped that I think she worked in the maternity ward of a Catholic hospital.
Right.
Yeah. They actually had quite a lot of teenage pregnancies where they would give the child up for adoption, right? So she'll tell me these things also. It was quite scary to hear, but then it also made me, like, if I ever found myself in an unfortunate situation, I will be able to talk to her about it. Do you think as a parent, right, Andie, it's the responsibility is on you and your wife as parents, or the schools to educate kids on sex?
Both lah. Obviously, the answer is both.
Yeah.
For school, I think it's important to give them. Okay, look, like when I was in school, right? I've never felt like school is something I can trust. It just felt like they were trying to tell me what to do in my life. Have always been, right? And that's always like, oh, do this. You must get this grade to pass. Must get this, do this. If not, you're bad. You're a failure. You're lousy. So that is my impression, lah. So like, I don't really trust them. As in, like, I don't feel like I can trust them. Maybe perhaps one or two teachers that I feel that went above and beyond what their responsibilities are. I felt like I could talk to them. Other than that, generally as a whole establishment, I would say that like there isn't that trust lah. So I think that trust comes from being in touch with like what youngsters are thinking and what they are behaving and the materials they are getting outside, and being able to talk to them at that level. If it's something that's very personal, I don't want to talk to my teacher or my friends, then I can talk to my parents, right? So then that's the parents will come in and tell you all the specific details and truth where you know you can trust your parents. You know, and I think that probably is the way it should play out lah, hopefully. But of course, if you have a very, very strong parent, you can take over the role. But not everybody has that. So then the teacher, the establishment might be able to step up and help in that area lah.
Okay, so let us know what you think, whether you think it's the schools or the parents, and as parents, like, you know, how you go about doing it.
Maybe like MOE will see this episode and then they'll say, hey, yeah, you know, maybe we can update our...
Hey, MOE, call us. We can help you with that.
All right, guys. See you all next week.